Good morning, Catherine. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I am well. I have to say it's quite the pleasure to be here with you today on my first Pat and Cat chat.
I know, don't you love the Pat and Cat chat? Well, first of all, I'm really thrilled you've joined PPMD, and I know we started this conversation a very long time ago. It seems in January when we were together at the summit and really comparing notes, and this initiated a conversation about your coming. So first, Catherine, maybe start with an introduction of the work that we've done, the time that we've met, and the work that you've done in particular to come into this community. So I'd love for our audience to have a little background.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. And I feel, I think you're inferring that this has been a journey to come to this point. I think many in the community will be familiar with me, and while it's true that I've only been with the organization for 3 months, really it's been, a decade plus of really working with this community to um, advance PPMD's mission and purpose in various roles. As many of our listeners may know, I've been in various roles in companies, but I've also been a part of many of the kind of platform consortia that have been out there to advance, care and research for this community. So it's been an honor along the way to get to know many of the families while serving as a resource and a trusted partner. And in joining this organization, I am committed and have committed myself to really harnessing the great strength and talent in this community to achieve better outcomes in health and happiness. And I think that's where, we have really come together around these shared goals and our conversations and our shared commitment. Um, Supporting the most vulnerable throughout their experience with whatever dystrophinopathy that they are experiencing, and working with the dedicated partners out in our space to advance the shared goals of this organization. And I think I'm just so honored to come in and work with you to strengthen the organization and to honor its legacy. And so, these last 3 months have really been spent getting to know the organization, its programs, its people, its priorities, and again, just so proud to be with such a talented team and thoughtful team, and really just so honored to have been selected to lead it with you moving forward.
Thank you, Catherine. I know. So I've served as the CEO and president for now 30 years. So it's been a journey for me personally to really think through how do you preserve the health and happiness of this community? How do you make sure or try your very best not to leave anyone behind? Because as you know, this is a very long journey for families, and we are often learning along the way in the absence of data. And so we're trying to figure out what are the questions we need to ask and how do we need to ask them and what pillars do they impact and where can we have the greatest impact, whether that's care or research or advocacy or communication and community. And so we think through what is our best way forward here. And so I think when I met you a long time ago, it seems, and I remember actually we were at a meeting when you introduced yourself to me, and I have always appreciated your thoughtfulness about this community, your reverence for the community, and your respect for the community. And so that, as we've had this conversation, to it's always hard to have a baby and then share that baby, right? I have to say I'm delighted that you're here. I have enjoyed and will continue to enjoy working with you, sharing my perspective and having your perspective to advance where we are. We're in, I think, difficult and complicated times with people at all different ages and stages to think about newborn screening all the way up to adults and how we care for them and what opportunities they might have and everything in between. So I'm really pleased that you're here, pleased that we can work together on try to advance therapy development as well as access issues as well as care issues. So I think that has been such a joy so far about working together with you. I wonder as you get to know the organization, and the strength of the people. I think we have one of the best teams that I've ever come across. Lovely, passionate, committed people. I wonder if there are some highlights in the organization that you found so far that you would love to talk about or remember.
That's a tough question because I think, I can't, well, it's like a parent, right? You can't play favorites. But I think all of the pillars in this organization are just spot on. And I think the beauty of what you have done, as well as others in the organization, is to marry the talent with the pillar, right? To achieve great, great things. I'm super excited. I think we can all agree that the care and research and treatment landscape is evolving. And while that's great, it's evolving to a complexity that, is really hard to understand. And how we kind of pivot and prioritize what we're doing to meet those demands, right, will really speak to how the talent in the organization can rise to the occasion and meet those demands and priorities put forward by the community. And I think we are looking to do all of this together and have the right team to think about how do we look at communities that are currently underserved. Either they are not represented by the advancing pipelines, or they are ineligible for currently approved therapies, or to your reference of age and stage, they may be outside of the radar of current therapies. And I think we have the right people in this organization to think about how do we gather and advance data to impact questions like what is next? What comes after an approved therapy, right? How do we work through our data acquisition and our assets to answer that question? We have a phenomenal team in place looking at that. How are we advancing priorities that will de-risk and advance the research fields? Are we, looking at newer, better, improved biomarkers? Are we, asking the tough questions of our collaborating researchers to think innovatively? Are we leaning in to our company partners to say, okay, this is great what you're doing next, and we are helping you get to goal. But what are you thinking about in order to honor all of the families that are in our community to serve them? And I think, our research team, Eric, is guiding us in some of those questions and doing a phenomenal job. I think when we look at the policy environment right now and what is happening in the world of our public agencies, we have a very strong advocacy team as well as advocates in the community to ensure that research is protected through public funding. We have talent in place to advance the voice of the community, right? To say this is what we want and deserve. And we need to protect the drug development environment to continue to produce and to support innovative approaches to drug development for this community, whether it is through regulatory flexibility or strengthening the tools that underpin some of those regulatory guidances, such as our platform technology designation. When we think about advancing care and research for smaller populations within the Duchenne community through N of one or N of a few, how do we strengthen the guidance and the path forward through our partners at the FDA? And again, we have the talent to reach into the community to support that and to advance these initiatives through our legislative advocacy efforts. And just can't speak highly enough about the people that you've put in place and what they've been able to accomplish.
No, I think that's right. And I think your description demonstrates the thread that or the way we try to thread things through. Because first of all, when we talk about newborn screening, and its implementation and where it is in the process, to get a child that is born and diagnosed at birth, and then to think through what kind of care, what safety net does that child and his family receive throughout his lifespan in terms of care all the way to adulthood, but how that impacts therapy development and access to those therapies, and then policies that ensure and cover access, and certainly data collection to understand what therapy is useful for what person at one dose, and how to add on therapies. And so then I think in the other continuum at the adult side, policies in place that are around the ability to access higher education, if that's an interest, the ability to have policies that these individuals, as they age, can be employed and can be independent. And so I think for us, it's to look at that journey and honor that journey and respect the journey through the continuum of birth throughout the lifespan. And so I think pulling that together where every single member and stakeholder of this community plays a role, from the individual and the parent and family and the community and industry, and I think that our team reflects each of those pieces and parts to thread this throughout a lifetime. I agree with you that there are people that are left behind, and we have to think through what the ramifications of what our research investment will be for those ineligible for a gene therapy, or for those ineligible for an antisense oligonucleotide, and how do we bring this together so that everyone is included to the best of our ability, and recognizing that soon is never going to be soon enough. So I am thrilled that you're here. The industry experience that you bring to the table as well is going to be so pivotal as we work with industry in this evolving complex. So I'd love for you to give a few words about industry and that experience, because that you have had such considerable experience in industry with starting with the anti-myostatin with Pfizer, gene therapy with Pfizer, and then more recently in antisense oligonucleotides.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question, because I think people may look at my professional journey and think, "Ooh, that's quite odd." But I look at, like, to truly serve the patient community, having that 360 view of what happens throughout their journey, right? So those years of genetic counseling was really spent in a clinical care setting with families as they kind of came into the world of a diagnosis. And what is the impact on self, child, family? How do you talk about it? How do you work through it? How do you um, kind of change your whole world to go on a different path, one that you never expected for you or your family? And I think being able to work with families to navigate that path was a privilege, right? And I did that for 10 years. And I think working closely with the clinicians and with the families was a experience. Thinking about taking that to industry and saying, okay, given that experience in a kind of close relationship with a family or a community as dictated by that institution, how can I work to serve a larger population, specifically around this engaging in the scientific process, from whether that is discovery through to clinical research? How can that patient experience data really drive the decisions that companies are making in terms of their programs and their priorities when it comes to how they operationalize some of these trials? So kind of bringing that experience and that connectivity to the community into how companies think about developing and delivering therapies, I think was invaluable. How do and in doing that, having influence within a company to prioritize things like language, burden, networks. What are the spheres of influence when we want to engage people in clinical research? And then, of course, kind of working with the advocacy organizations where their missions are truly to serve and advance these priorities. And so coming into industry was really an opportunity to work with collaborators in the broader community around getting to a shared goal. So kind of working with the individual family and those individual needs in a care setting was invaluable. Bringing that into how companies can then engage and serve and bring forward shared goals, I think was invaluable. And now coming into an advocacy organization to really drive what those priorities are going to be and ensure that companies and the community are supporting them. I think it's really kind of run the whole gamut of the patient experience and some of those touch points to that experience.
Yeah, I think coming into the organization with that experience is remarkable because we have worked for 30 years to think about the patient, the family is central. The diagnosis, as you said, really changes the perspective of their plans and their ideas and what they understand. And so there's this whole new language and whole new environment that they're going to have to network. And there's considerable burden about decisions and care and trials and treatments, and how do you navigate that? So I think bringing all of your talent to this, I think the timing is exactly perfect as we have this ever evolving landscape that is wonderful in its evolution, but also complicated in its next steps for patients and families to make a decision. And our emphasis on respecting this journey, honoring every patient, trying to see a path forward for every individual here and what that path forward could be, and investing so we smooth out the road to the degree that we're possible. So I am thrilled that you're here. I can't think of anyone else in this world that I'd like to share the leadership of PPMD with, and I look forward to more cat chats because that's what we have to do over time, right? But also really sharing this journey with you as the world changes and our world changes, and we have complex problems to resolve, to address, and to think through how that affects every single member of our community. So I love that you talked about language. I've always been a very focused on how people speak, what terms and language we use, and how we reach people where they are to help them on their journey. So I can't thank you enough for joining PPMD. I am really, truly honored that you have decided to join as CEO. So thank you for that. And I'd love your perspective as we close the first Cat Pat Chats.
Well, thank you for that. And I have to say the honor is all mine because, I think there are few opportunities in our lifetimes and in our professional careers to really have the mentors that will develop you and the leaders that will inspire you. And I feel that I have come home to an organization where I have the privilege of working with both in one person. And this has really been such a great experience for me so far. And I look forward to all that we're going to accomplish together. So.
Thanks, Catherine.